who are, oh, just 1 second, I'm sorry. For those who are here, we'll take a quick review of the slides silently so that we can know what we're going through, what we're dealing with.
Great. I'll quick do the slides and then welcome everybody. Let me know if you can see this. Can we see that?
Yeah.
All right. Welcome everybody. Let me pass it back to Charisse. For media on here, if you have any questions, if you want to just use the hand raise emoji or put your name in the chat, and we will get your questions. And I will pass it to Charisse now.
Hi, good morning. My name is Charisse, and what brings me here today is first, I am a part of IWOC, and we are a union of prisoners and prisoners and families who are coming together to dismantle and redo the prison systems. I currently have 2 sisters who are in Shakopee prison who I speak with on every day, and they keep me, they inform me of things that they are dealing with in the prison and things that they see daily that is not acceptable during this pandemic and the time of them going through this situation with COVID there. The reason I'm here is because I know that the commissioner has control and the power to do things and change things in the prison system. And I am looking forward to him doing that. My family suffers, seeing not only themselves, but there are other inmates there that are very sick who could come home. And I'm here because I'm very concerned about that. And the governor and the commissioner has the power to change these things. And that's why I'm here today, because of that. We are very concerned about the COVID, how it's affecting people in the prisons and how they're not able to come home. Even non-violent offenders who are able to come home are not able to come home. And so we are here asking and wanting the commissioner to know that we want that. So one of the concerns is no medical accreditation or independent oversight, no consistency in policy or person responsible. 2 facilities were open air cells to ensure spread, Stillwater and St. Cloud, endless lockdowns, no visitations, no programs, religious services, a complete lack of care for well-being of the incarcerated, inconsistent enforcement of COVID rules, constant transfers, clear cross contamination, lack of mask wearing, sanitizing, N95, short staff, endless overtime and exhaustion. Canteen has been canceled, now reduced to $30. So they were used to that being more. Major uptick in suicides at Stillwater. No action, only words from the DOC commissioner and governor, who have only used 13% of their legal authority to address staffing in COVID crisis by moving low-risk prisoners to more appropriate settings. So we're here to bring this to light and ask the commissioner and the governor, what are their plans to do about this? So, yeah. I'll now pass it to Lavelle.
All righty. I'm Lavelle Oates Ill. I've been incarcerated. I've been wrongfully incarcerated. I'm here with iWalk. Even while I was incarcerated, I've done this work, and I've been helped start a group we had that brought the community in called Bridging the Gap. And with this, I will go from, well, we're gonna start with the numbers for the crisis, which I'm not even gonna state that it's a crisis. Basically, it's a disaster. It's basically attuned to a national and a natural disaster. Right now, after they have put in protocol, there's still 20% of the people, which would be 1,542 people in the prisons that have COVID, Now, why is this important? Basically, I've gotten a call from my brother that's in there, Leon Perry. He called me stating that he had his own cell in Moose Lake, and they took the cell away from him, his single cell, and moved him into a cell with somebody who just got over COVID. And we don't know if they're over it or not, because we still don't even know what the protocol is or what exactly, how long it takes for it not to be contagious or what's going on. So these are the factors that we need to address, and trying to find out why the commissioner isn't using the power that he states that he has to help relieve the crisis. Also, based upon the fact that there's been over 90% of the prisoners in Minnesota, which is 6,706 people, have had COVID. That's 90%. And that's the number that they're giving us out of, 7,511 prisoners. If he was taking the test, basically, in a good way, he'd get an A. So this is outrageous. It shouldn't happen. Nobody could do this, even if they tried. So we know the protocol isn't working, whatever it is, because we don't know what it is. Nobody has told us. So whatever the protocol is, what we know will work if he helped release people on their medical release and through work release. We know this. So these are the things that we're here for and trying to bring forth and make it help. Now, while we talk about the numbers, it goes on to what becomes a major problem, which would be staff. Now, even the guards, through their union, and of course, there's somebody that's silent, but they state they have never seen morale this low. And morale will become low because when you see people that are in need of help and there's nothing being done to help them, it will affect you, whether negatively or positively. So the guards are suffering from COVID as well as the inmates. Matter of fact, they probably suffering more so because they're used to their situation outside of the penitentiary or outside of the facilities. So now they take not only the physical part of COVID, but the mental health aspect back home. And this becomes a major issue, not just for the inmates, but for the guards. So the staffing is becoming a major issue because the prisoners, when you're in prison, you look forward to the things that you have to do. It's almost like a normal life to you. So you started doing things. And now when that routine's taken away, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, you're disturbed now, because you're usually used to doing something that takes your mind off of these things. So the staffing becomes a major issue, again, not just for the inmates, but the staff in and of themselves, which brings me to the next issue, which would be the suicides. Matter of fact, I apologize. I'm still go on. Matter of fact, I'm jumping all the way back up to the numbers again, because there were 13 deaths. Again, one death is too many, but when you have 13, there comes a point when somebody has to say, and we know who this somebody is, the commissioner, well, I have the power to stop this. Let me enter another protocol or try to find something to stop these deaths. We don't know, again, the numbers is what we have for 13 deaths, but of course we know that numbers are doctored and there probably are way more that could be attributed to this, but this is what they attribute to it, is 13 deaths. And again, now, going back to the staffing, this becomes an issue, again, not just for the inmates, but the staff. This is a real issue that has to be addressed. And anytime the guards union is addressing it, then it's an issue, not just with the inmates. So the staff that issue has to be addressed, which again, speaking upon the deaths, would push me into my third issue, which would be the suicides. Leonard Richards, a well-known person who's been locked up a while, and he always brings up issues and put them together. He wrote or emailed basically that a man named Harris cut himself and bled out in the A East housing unit. Also, another man hung himself in B West housing unit. Now, these are two separate housing units. We aren't just talking about an isolated incident or two isolated incidents where somebody is in the same unit and it might happen. These are two different units. So again, this is chain reaction and it becomes a virus. Matter of fact, it's already a virus, but the virus is spreading and it is spreading itself with negativity through personal and what we know now to be mental health issues, which are greatly discussed and greatly brought about now. And we know this is how those issues are created. So based upon those facts, the suicide rate has went up. Excuse me, hold on one more. And we know, like I said, with just now the suicide rate is going up among inmates. And we know from history and from the research that guards are at a high rate of suicide, basically even leaving the job. But this is at a point where they're really deciding that they might want to leave because of the way they're being treated, not just the inmates. They know that it creates a danger for not just the inmates, but the guards and everybody. Like I said, it becomes a mental health issue, not just an issue of incarceration or issue of health. These are all issues that are interlocked together and causes a chain reaction, as I stated before. And with that, I'll pass it to Reese and let him elaborate on the other things and how all of this is related and how we need the commissioner to make a decision. Well, I guess he's made a decision, but we need him to make a decision to try to change the protocol to make things better. Maurice Graham Bay, you up.
Good morning, everybody. Nyojong, buenos días. Estamos aquí porque tenemos problemas con nuestro liderazgo y específicamente con nuestro liderazgo en el sistema penitenciario. We're here because we're having major problems with our prison system. We are dealing with a COVID outbreak, but more specifically, a pandemic of the lack of leadership. When I talk about the lack of leadership, I'm talking about we have a situation in prison right now that could be changed by one person. We're in a democracy, and usually that's not the case. Usually there's a lot of dialogue that has to take place, a lot of rules that got to get made. But in the situation right now, the rules have already been made. The state, and whatever wisdom that it has seen fit to enact, has already placed laws that allow the Commissioner of Corrections to release prisoners who he or his staff have seen have serious medical conditions or are in serious danger of being infected by various contagions. They have contagious disease policies, which allow for the enactment of policies that may not be the normal way the prison operates, in order to separate people and give them distance, to give them space, so that way they can live without the fear of not only being killed, but just the fear of being sick. Nobody wants to be sick. In addition, there are policies that allow for conditional medical release. These policies precede COVID, and these policies were enacted in a way that transferred the power from the state legislature and from the executive to the commissioner, because everybody who was debating this legislation knew from the get-go that nobody would be in the penitentiary to see what was going on. The courts, when they sentence a person, they sentence the person that is in front of them. They do not notice when a person loses his legs, or when a person has several strokes and has to have their skull cut open to relieve pressure off their brain, like Robert Hosley, who is now in the penitentiary without the ability to talk. He cannot walk properly or care for himself properly. He cannot even speak to his mother on the phone when he calls because he can't talk. And he's in the penitentiary, even though he was granted conditional medical release 11 years ago. He's still there in prison. You have Rodney Gillum, who has only half of a body. He has had an amputation from the waist down with permanent open wounds that have gone septic a number of times and nearly killed him. He's also diabetic. He has a hernia the size of a soccer ball that they cannot operate on because he has permanent open wounds and he cannot afford to lose any more blood. They can't take the risk. They can't operate on him, not while he's in the penitentiary. He's already served over a couple of decades behind bars. He is not the same man. And I'm not talking about maybe spiritually, I can't even tell you. I won't guess. I know he's a decent individual as far as when I talk to him, but I'm talking about physically, specifically the danger that he presents to the public. He's an older man and he is hurt, he's injured and he's sick, and he needs a place where he could be cared for better. And the commissioner has the power to do that. And I could go on. There are, horrific stories. I know middle-aged man who, Charles Lewis, well, actually he's elderly, he's in his late 60s, who tested negative for COVID. He's on an oxygen machine permanently, and his cellmate tested positive for COVID. And so they took him and they have isolated him in a cell on quarantine with 3 other individuals who are COVID positive as we speak. That's where he's at. He can't breathe on his own already. And they placed him in a situation where he's around 3 people who are COVID positive for the entire day. He's quarantined, locked in with them. And so when we're addressing these issues, we're addressing real human issues that have a real human face. And this represents the exact situation whereby which the legislator enacted their conditional medical release policies and their contagious disease policies, because they knew that the courts wouldn't be able to intervene. They knew that the legislature wouldn't convene, and they placed the power to appoint a commissioner specifically with the executive and all that entails, because the executive branch is the branch that is appointed to make decisions on the spot, to overcome the limitations of a democratic system whereby which debate and deliberation take too much time to deal with emergencies as they arise. So the commissioner has emergency powers, and he has failed to significantly use them. Now, he didn't campaign to us. He didn't have to run on a campaign. The governor campaigned. And in the governor's campaign, he stated his desire to enhance job training opportunities for individuals when they're released. And he placed a commissioner apparently in keeping with his plan to do this. And so work release is the quintessential job training program that the penitentiary offers. The legislature has already established the guidelines whereby which the commissioner is free to set policy to enact it. And by those guidelines, there are thousands of people who are low risk to the public who could be placed into job training programs where the system would not be so crowded, where the staff wouldn't be at such a high risk, where the prisoners wouldn't be locked in. So when we're talking about staff to prisoner ratios, and we're talking about staff danger, like the guards union was speaking about, we're not just talking about the danger of COVID, although that's a consideration. We're talking about the fact that they count on levels of prisoners to guards being the same, or an appropriate level whereby which the guards don't have to be fear of losing control. And one of the ways to do that is you can hire more staff. And another way that you can do that is you can enact population reduction measures. And in this situation where we're trying to have a less crowded system, the philosophy of criminal justice aside, when we're trying to have a less crowded system to inhibit the spread of a contagious disease and to create a safer working environment for the staff who have to go home to their families, then it only makes sense to enact the policies that we already have. We proposed as a committee, IWOC has proposed policy changes in the past, and we're willing to propose policy changes in the future in order to adjust the way that the prison operates. However, so far, the commissioner has not acted and has failed to address us with a corresponding plan of action that would achieve some of these objectives. Now, initially, he did state to us that he would be using his conditional medical release powers to a much greater extent than which he has done so far. And he's only done about 13% of that. And this is despite this having been going on for a couple of years now. And so what we're concerned with is the pace. 13 people dead. A person who recently died at Oak Park just a week ago. And we don't know how many people who were released from prison who were sick and died, or things like that. Those are things that we can't track. But we've heard lots of stories from people behind bars. And so I would just like to draw our attention to the fact that we need a concentrated effort from everybody involved to get the commissioner to enact some type of policy change within his department. Not a new law. We don't need nothing new. The legislator did that. We just need him to enact policy in a way that allows some of this to take place in a more expedient manner. There's a individual who is incarcerated that's emblematic of that, and some people call her Grams, and she's 88 years old, and she has serious debilitating conditions, and she's still sitting behind bars, and she's already served a couple of decades behind bars. And so an 88-year-old woman with pre-existing conditions is not the type of person that we envisioned as a society when we enacted the penal system. And she's just exemplary of hundreds of individuals like that around the system. And I say that we need to act and we need to make a change. With that, I appreciate you guys attending and being here to hold this space with us and to be a witness and to stand in solidarity with those who are suffering and those who are dying behind bars because of ineffective leadership on this issue. And if you guys have questions, please feel free to ask them to any of us on this panel about anything that you've heard, and we'll be glad to explain more. Thank you.
Yes, thank you everybody for being here. We really appreciate the time that you took out of your day to come and listen and be a part of this. And if you have any questions, like you said, just use the hand raise function or use it in the comments. We appreciate your time. Yeah.
See,
So I
there's a
seen a
from
question.
Glenn. Yeah, you
Yeah,
want to read it?
yeah, could you put it up again for a little while? Because I couldn't quickly.
So, and others can feel free to answer this as well, to Glenn Howard. So the last time that anyone was released under the policies that we mentioned, so the governor, by virtue of the commissioner, so it's not the governor directly saying this, it's the commissioner, has decided to phase out the conditional medical release program. And so they have put the brakes on this policy, and even though they never really got off the ground with it, it's not like they released lots of people, they only released a few people, but they stopped that already. And in our communications with the commissioner, he indicated that they're going to end the conditional medical release for COVID, period. And so I will pass this to David here, who can give you some more insight.
Thanks. Yeah, Glenn, I would just say that these are all policies that they use on a regular basis. Work release is a regular program. Conditional medical release is less common, but is a regular thing that happens. They did close COVID, special COVID release, like Luis mentioned. But these are all normal policies that the commissioner uses on a normal basis. We just want them to use them on an emergency basis in an emergency situation.
Also, well, like you're speaking on the work release though, but I know, like we talked about earlier, that the 50% part, that's not used that often, but the last time I can remember it used, I think we spoke on it. You might know the lady's name, the football player's wife. I can't remember, but they let her out. That was about 12 years ago, after doing 50% of her time, basically, for work release. But no one else gets that unless they do it only with the last year of their time. So there are occasions where the commissioners use it, but they use it sparingly or when they feel like that they should or could.
Yes, so just to clarify, so I mentioned a couple different policies. So we talked about conditional medical release policy. We talked about COVID medical release policy, and we talked about work release. And so those different policies, to a varying degree, have always been in play, with the exception of COVID medical release. So they've always had a medical release power. It just was not used very often, and that's a separate issue, but it's always been there. It's been in the power of the commissioner to release people like we're talking about, regardless of whether COVID was there. They just haven't, for whatever reason, been doing it as a matter of philosophy or policy or whatnot. But it is the law that they're allowed to do that already. The COVID medical release came into play specifically in regards to this current pandemic, and it began about 2 years ago. And that is the one that we are focused on, as far as it was never really used to its stated aims, and it has been phased out far before it ended. And then work release itself. So work release, again, is a policy that has been in place. I've read legislative commentary back in 1980 about work release policy. And previous to that, it was in the hands of a parole board type thing, and they translated all those powers to the commissioner. And the commissioner has had these powers now for over 40 years. It's just that the commissioner hasn't seen fit to put in place policies for utilizing that law to its fuller extent. So when we're talking about using this emergency as an impetus, we're not talking about creating a new law or, to somehow release people or something. What we're talking about is the powers that the commissioner already has had and has not seen fit to use in the past. We're saying that there is greater urgency right now to use this. So yes, people are released on work release. just far, far fewer than who are eligible for it. And under policies, these are just departmental policies that are under the control of the commissioner that limit them in ways that the legislator did not envision. And so we were trying to get some of these limitations moved out of the way, these internal departmental limitations moved out the way so we can use work release to its full extent, because right now it's an effective way to address several of the issues that we're having considering the pandemic.
So I would just say, I will put the data on conditional medical releases into the chat if that's helpful. Pass it back to Sharice.
Okay. So, yeah, that is what we're aiming for, is to get these policies and things in place. We're asking that the commissioner listen to us and use the power that he has to make these changes and get things done here. Both of my sisters were out for 15 to 18 months waiting on their appeal. Unfortunately, they both went back, but in that 15 to 18 months, there was no violations or anything. They're both in their 50s with medical conditions, non-violent offenders. And that just is one of the reasons that I know that the commissioner has, could release these people with medical conditions that is not going to reoffend, who can't reoffend, who has been rehabilitated and has no intention on doing any of that. So, yeah. So we're just asking for the medical release to be enforced. Yes. So once again, thank you all. If there's any more questions, you can use the hand raise or the chat. And that's what we're doing. Yeah. And the commissioner promised 1,600 releases in March 2020. And he has not done that. He has not done that. And when you have family and friends and people that you care about there, and the commissioner is making promises, we hold those promises close to our hearts, and we expect him to do what he said he was going to do. This is our family and friends' lives. And this is something that if he said he's going to do it, and he has the power to do it, it's an emergency. COVID is not anything that they asked for. They didn't ask to serve their time and serve a death sentence. So it's just unfair. It's very unfair. And the ball is in his court. He has the power. And we want to see that he uphold what he said he would and he could do. There's no way that somebody should be there who hold only a half a body. There's no way that he should be there in prison still. There's no way an 88-year-old lady in prison should still be there with medical conditions, who's not capable of doing absolutely anything. She's served 2 decades. It's time for her to come home. And the commissioner has the power to let her come home. And a lot of people that he know that have medical conditions that are not capable, that are sick, that are not able to do anything, and exposed to, they're exposed to COVID. They didn't ask for COVID. They didn't ask for that. And then with the staffing being limited, and it's just, they can't social distance. They don't have the N95 mask. They're wearing just regular masks. They're passing each other that has COVID and everything. So yeah, we're just asking. Well, thank you again. If you have any questions, just let us know. We thank you very much for being here once again, and appreciate your time.
As I reiterate, I would like to reiterate her thanks. I appreciate that people have came out because, you know, this is kind of the dialogue that we're having. And we are incapable of doing the things that we need to do if the community isn't active and isn't pressing for the principles that we espouse being put into play. And it's just a tragedy. And I would like to go ahead and pass to Lavelle, and in keeping with what Sharisa said, please take into consideration that these are individuals that we care about. They're people that have affected our lives, their family members, grandparents, grandchildren, some of them. And, you know, it's about love, it's about community, it's about support. It's not just about policy. And I'll pass it to Lavelle over here.
Thank you. Again, thank you, Reese. And again, thank y'all for coming. And again, everything that Reese and Sharisa said, I just want to reiterate and make sure that it's understood that we're not asking the commission to do something that hasn't already been decided. They, like Reese said, the legislator, everything, this has already been done. We're just asking him to use the power that is granted to him to save lives. That's it, that's all. We're not asking for anything else. This is what needs to be understood, and I don't think most people in the public don't know these things. That's the reason for this press conference, to inform the public of the power that he truly has, and that uprising or just the notification that people know things. I think that becomes more of an issue, that people don't know the information, how simple it is to help or to prevent the deaths that has occurred, that we know that still will occur because a proper protocol has not been put in place. And with that, I thank y'all again. And if y'all have any questions, y'all can reach us or send them through iWalk, and we'll answer them the best we can. Thank you.
All right. All right. Well, we're done here, and we appreciate you again. And we just, I feel good. I'm grateful that we had the chance to let this out. We've been holding it. We've been trying to figure out how can we get this across, but I'm glad that we got a chance to do it. Thank you, Reese, David, Lavelle, and the media. We appreciate you guys again, and we're done. Unless you have any questions. If anyone wants to be in touch with us, there's the email and the phone number on the screen. Yeah. Thanks again.